Well, little Phil the snake lived down in the pit with his mama. He learned to hiss when he was real young. His mama thought it was cute. She encouraged him, so he just hissed and hissed all the time down in the pit. But after a while, it began to get on her nerves. And one day she said, "Little Phil, I'm sorry, but you can't hiss in my pit anymore. Go over to the pot's pit and hiss in the pot's pit with the little pots." So little Phil went over to the pot's pit. Miss Potts wasn't home, but there were all the little pots hissing and hissing in the pit. And little Phil had the time of his life hissing in the pot's pit with the little pots. But then Miss Potts came home and she said, "Little Phil, what are you doing hissing in my pit? Go home and hiss in your own pit." So little Phil went home and told his mama that Miss Potts said he couldn't hiss in her pit. And his mama said, "Why, that Miss Potts, I knew her when she didn't have a pit to hiss in." Did I ever tell you about my Uncle Apt? That wasn't his real name. They called him that because if anybody ever offered him a drink, he was apt to take it. Uncle Apt lived out in the country right down here below Macon, but he went to Atlanta one time. You see, his daughter got married and moved to Atlanta, so he went up there to see her. But he didn't stay long. He didn't like the way they did things up there. First off, he asked his daughter where the outhouse was. And she said, "Well, Pa, we don't have an outhouse. We have a bathroom right here in the house." Well, he didn't like that too much, but he made the best of it. Then it came time to cook supper, and he said, "I'll just sit in the kitchen and talk to you while you fix supper." She said, "Well, Pa, we're not going to cook in the kitchen. We're going to grill out on the patio." Well, Uncle Apt started getting his things together. He said, "I'm going back home where they don't do things backwards, where they cook in the kitchen and go outside when they're supposed to." Uncle Apt didn't have much use for doctors. He thought they were all quacks, and besides that, they charged too much. But he got to feeling so bad one time, he decided he'd better make an appointment with the doctor. So he called and made an appointment. Then he got to worrying about how much the doctor was going to charge, so he called back down there and said, "What does this doctor charge when you come to see him?" And the lady said, "Well, the first visit's $100, and after that it's $25. Well, Uncle Apt thought, I'll know how to get around that. So when he walked in, he said, "Well, hello, Doc, here I am again." And the doctor said, "Well, fine, just keep on doing what I told you to do last time." Another group of people that Uncle Apt didn't have much use for was insurance salesmen. One came to his house one time trying to sell him some life insurance. And he talked and talked till he was about blue in the face. He saw he just wasn't getting anywhere with Uncle Apt. So he finally said, "Well, don't you worry about how your wife would carry on if something happened to you?" He said, "Heck no. She can carry on all she wants to after I'm gone, as long as she behaves herself while I'm living." Did y'all know that Uncle Apt's daughter went to college? She really did. He didn't have much education himself, but his one ambition was to send his daughter to college, so he worked and saved and sent her to college. First time she was coming home for a visit, he was so excited. He wanted to find out what all she learned at college, and too, he was anxious to see her. On the way home, she said, "Pa, there's something I think I ought to tell you. I ain't a virgin anymore." Well, Uncle Apt hit the ceiling. He ranted and he raved. You've never seen anybody quite as mad as he was. He said, "Here I have worked and slaved, have done without things just to send you to college, and you still say ain't." It was bad what happened to Uncle Apt in the end, though. He got to feeling so bad. One of his neighbors said, "You know, Apt, you ought to move to Florida. That Florida sunshine will cure most anything." So he did. He packed up and moved to Florida. Hadn't been down there more than 3 weeks when he died. They brought him back up to Macon, laid him out real nice, had a crest-long suit and ties, hair all slicked back. I mean, even if he was my uncle, he did look mighty fine. All of his neighbors came to pay their respects, and they all bragged on how he looked. And one of his neighbors said, "You know, Apt looks the best I've ever seen him. I think that Florida sunshine must have done him a world of good."